Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Dorina Sackman-Ebuwa, aka Ms. Dorito, and I'm coming to you from the Florida-Georgia line, and I am supposed to be live. But unfortunately, as we know, with these uncertain times and unforeseen circumstances, caused me to have to make the backup recording. It doesn't mean that I am not on Twitter right now as we speak, or I'm speaking and you're listening, I hope. I will be there on hashtag VirtuEL and hashtag Believe_Cafe. You can find me where you see that right on the screen at Dorina_Believe. And I will be interacting for this half hour, but unfortunately I am unable to be live. I do live on a farm, and that farm causes me to have some compromised bandwidth in very rural north central Florida. So without further ado, let's get ourselves started and recording or live or however it is, welcome to VirtuEL, and let's start talking emotional intelligence, shall we? I just wanted to invite you to my home post-COVID. My heart and my home is open to you, as well as all these wonderful ways in which you can feel safe and comfortable. I want the same here as I offer my hand to you in vulnerability, honesty, and safety as we talk about emotions during this uncertain time. So I just wanted you to feel safe looking here at my home and looking here in our session. So let's do this together. Throughout this presentation, there's going to be a lot of embedded strategies that I just love to put to help teachers out as we navigate virtual learning. I love using learningforward.org's AEIOU norms because the students were constantly being exposed to AEIOU, the vowels of the English language. I also love having to say the letter, and then the students would, of course, say across. So it would be A, ask questions, E, engage. And when we do have norms for the day, it really shows accountability. So take a look at this on your own, but know that we are truly here to unite our purpose, to do the emotional well-being for teachers and mental well-being in this time and beyond. So let's talk about it. Woo! Recently, about a year ago, ITV News did an interview with Meghan Markle, and they talked about her and what she was doing. And then all of a sudden, the reporter turned around and said, "Hey, are you okay?" And she was shocked and looked at the reporter and said, not many people have asked if I'm okay. You know what? That happens with us too. We live in a culture where we are always like, "Hey, how you doing? What's going on? Hey, y'all, how's everything going? Hey, what's up? How you doing? What's up?" And it is very face value. But during this time, it is imperative that you reach out and ask someone, "Are you okay?" And we're going to talk about that. And have people asked you that in your profession and personal life? The honest question, "Are you okay?" Well, I'm asking you, how are you? Are you okay? One of the ways I love to embed social emotional learning during virtual learning is, of course, to create word art. I absolutely love this particular wordart.com. I think it's easy. And I also ask the students to create their own when they talk about their emotions. But if they separate themselves into different rooms in the chat rooms that I love to do on Zoom, and they're different classrooms, if you will, they talk about their emotions and then they create their own word art. They all come together and we take a look at everybody's assignment. It's a very powerful piece to actually embed the emotional aspect while acquiring academic language, because we can take the word sad and also change it to something else. We can take the word funny and change it to something more academic. So it is great that they're learning the language, but more importantly, they're learning how to express their emotions in a safe and wonderful place, and showing that vulnerability is actually strength. So what I'd love for you to do right now, and if you could tweet it out, it would be wonderful, or you could just put it in chat boxes, if you will, and take a look and just say, how are you feeling? What are your emotions right now? Let it out. And it doesn't have to be negative. You could say, "I am wonderful. I am blessed." You can do whatever it is that you're feeling at this time. But I want to take it a little bit on the topic of being a teacher during a pandemic and going back to school. I want you to think about that and what are your emotions, and write those down now. So take a look at another embedded strategy with the SIOPS content and language objectives. When you look at the content objectives, obviously you see color, color coding, highlighting, and then the language objective, there's nothing. So think about when you're teaching virtually. How consistent are you with your highlighting and your colors? Do it, make it consistent, and look at the difference, right? What would you want to see if you were learning a language? And of course, both of them shouldn't be on one screen. It should have been separate. But in the interest of really showing you the power of making sure that the students see what you're teaching and that it pops. Before you know it, students are going to go, hey, Missy, how come you didn't highlight the verbs? I promise you, this is a very powerful piece. Highlight the verbs, put a different color for the gist of things. Really wonderful. This slide is a gist. It is basically what emotional intelligence is, transformative emotional intelligence. And for the rest of this session, I will call it TEI. Emotional intelligence is, and I'm going to read the slide, an ability to think constructively and behave wisely. It's reflected in the ability to, meaning you have the power. I have the power. You have the power to think constructively and behave wisely. And how do you do that? By the next one. You have intentional and self-directed behavior, but that can only be done with reflective thought. That's a fancy way of calling yourself out. That's what that is. We need to be more about calling ourselves out. And then the third one, it will lead to wise and effective behavior. But that requires the ability to, again, it's your choice, regulate and express your emotions in a healthy way. Ah, come on, I can't do that. Well, I'm Italian, I'm hot-blooded. Let's perpetuate more stereotypes about culture, shall we? I don't know why I'm doing that dance. And it's really because we want to understand to express and regulate our emotions. If you are someone who's hot-blooded, if you are someone who's totally passionate about just even existing, you have to regulate and express your emotions because that intentional and self-directed behavior can help you with that, positive or negative. It also, and the biggest part, is that emotional intelligence harmonizes the cognitive and the emotional mind. You must realize that there are two minds going on when it comes to emotional intelligence. Oh, I know this left brain and right brain. And because I'm a lefty, I'm in the right frame of my mind. No, we're not talking about left brain, right brain. We're talking about neocortex and limbic system. We're actually not doing this. We're doing this. And I want to talk to you in detail about every single one of these. Because again, ability to think constructively and behave wisely, self-directed behavior with reflective thought, wise and effective behavior, but it requires ability to regulate and express your emotions, and then the harmony, which we will talk in a moment. In the first part of the definition of TEI, the ability to think constructively and behave wisely, there is a 10-minute video for you on Believe Cafe on my YouTube page, and the links are right in your handouts. So you would be able to just go to Believe Cafe, and there's 40 of these for you to understand, and it goes into consecutive order as you start your journey of transformative emotional intelligence. And in this 10-minute video, it is the first one, you can see day 1, Q1, it really talks about your feelings. And just like I asked you how you were doing and you did one word or just like a little bit of a phrase, I want you to see the ability to think constructively and behave wisely. What happens is when you have the I'm feeling, and you can see the visuals there, unhappy, if you put however, you would then actually, again, growth mindset, of course, change your behavior because you're acknowledging the emotion, but then you're going to do something about it. Think constructively, behave wisely. So again, this is for you. It's a 10-minute video for you to watch, but this is an idea for you to get an idea that how you feel needs to be discussed within yourself. And we're going to really understand that in just a minute. So here's the second part about intentional self-directed behavior. It really is the ability to know and express your emotions. Once you think constructively and behave wisely, you will be able to. For example, change is inevitable, growth is optional. Here is an example again for day 2, only about 9 minutes for you to understand what it really means in this particular part of TEI. And an example would be, I have reflected and accepted diri in my life, and I am choosing to grow in diri each day. This is your way of self-directing yourself rather than going, whatever. Jesus, Mary and Joseph, I can't do this anymore. This is ridiculous. First they're going to school, now we're not going to school. First they're doing this, now I don't know what's happening. I don't know if I should take my kids to school or not. I don't know if I should go online. I don't know if I should take a leave of absence. All of that, right? It's not going to help that way, but your ability to have intentional self-directed behavior gives you reflective thought. And we're going to talk about how to do it even more in just a minute. Take a look at Believe Cafe Day 2, and you will understand that even more. All right, if you do have ornithophobia, please look away. I just want to embed, again, some cultural responsiveness. But if you do not have it, please look and understand that this is a visual for you to see the importance of the essential and effective behavior by balancing the cognitive and emotional mind. So as you're looking at this, I'd love for you to do this. I'd love it, and just tweet me out a picture of you doing it. Make your best bird, as if you were going to do your graceful bird like this to make a shadow puppet, right? Understand that this wing is the cognitive, this wing is the emotional. You cannot fly unless both are balanced. If one is stronger than the other, yes, to navigate, you need that. But if one is dominant over the other, look what happens to a bird. It goes in circles or it can't get to its destination. That analogy or that metaphor is the same thing for our cognitive and emotional mind. The cognitive is the rational behavior coming out of the neocortex. The emotional is the one coming from the limbic system that's responsible for the feelings and trust. Well, I'm just a really emotional person, Dorito. Yeah, I am too. So that's why I'm out of balance sometimes, because I lead with my emotion. And now my bird is like, ah, where am I going? But if I balance a little bit more on cognitive, I can fly better. This is the analogy, if you can leave with anything, is this. And the reason I know this is so important is, as an emotional human being, my cognitive, I need to learn to balance. Whereas my husband, a computer programmer, who I believe is just black and white, A and B, destination here, here, he actually has way too much cognitive and needs to add more emotion. And that is how you really know about people. Well, that's just Venus and Mars, men and women. Not at all. And one should never assume that. We should have conversations about balancing cognitive and emotional so we know how to engage people, and we know people are cognizant of their own lack of balance of it so that they can truly fly beautifully by understanding your cognitive and emotional mind. So I hope that really is a great lesson for you to think about. Where's your bird flying, right? All right, the next step is a fantastic activity that everybody seems to love. I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's available to you on Believe Cafe on my YouTube channel, and the link is actually right below this. And you could go and watch all 40, but the day 3, question 3 is about cleaning out your junk drawer. And it is a wonderful activity where you actually draw a junk drawer, you draw a big box, and you actually, with Post-it notes, inside your junk drawer, put everything that's bothering you, everything that's on your mind, every single thing. Each Post-it note gets it. You could do this alone, with your family, with your spouse, with your PLCs, friends, with your students. It is very powerful. You just dump it all in there. And then you look at them like it's a game. And you turn around as if it's your junk drawer. You know what a junk drawer is all about. You're trying to look for a measuring tape, and you got to like go underneath all these koozies from 1997 because you can't even find the tape, and because there's like staplers that are rusted because you don't even know, you haven't even used it. And it's just those things where you're just trying to get out all this junk so that you can have the essentials in there and locate them and navigate them. It might be a lot of things, but at least you know, and it's not overwhelming. That's the metaphor for what's happening with our emotions right now. So take those things that you don't have control over. You don't have a control over Betsy DeVos? She shouldn't be in your junk drawer. You don't have control over the present administration right now, whether it's in your district, whether it is in your school, whether it is in the United States. What you want to do is say, okay, I don't have control right now. I may have in November, but I don't have control right now. It's out. I can't control this. I cannot make myself worried. People who choose not to wear masks, that is their opinion. It might not be mine. I have no control over those people. What I do have control over is where I go to ensure that I am not subjecting myself to those who don't wear masks. So this is where you can, do you see how intelligent and thinking constructively and behaving wisely that was? Rather than, oh my gosh, these people don't wear masks. Why? It's their choice. And if this is what they want to do, as frustrating as it may be, this is what you have to say. It's out of my junk drawer. I have no control over those people, but I have control over how I, one, handle that, and two, subject myself to those people. So this is why the junk drawer is so powerful. Take a look at that. You will see that you will alleviate so much because you relinquish the control. And here's an example of what you could do with that, what you have control of and what you can't. And this is an example just for the beginning parts of COVID, but it's still relevant right now. Thank you, counselingteacher.com. Teachers, always give credit where credit is due. Make sure you do your APA styles, and when you do get information from someone else, make sure you do have it. It's the way that we can build true teacher leadership together. But with that, this great clip art from counselingteacher.com shows you what you have control over and what you don't. Let's do another one of those exercises. So again, in the interest of time, this again is a full day, 2 days, and a full thing for the year. This is where you would do something called get into the zone. No, it's not really AutoZone, but you would actually talk about where you are when it comes to going back to school. Not who I choose to be during COVID. You can take a look at this. This started, but really you have the fear zone, the learning zone, and the growth zone. Well, we have that about going back to school. I'd love for you to make one of these for yourself or your PLC, your PLN, of your fear zone. What are you afraid of? What are you learning about? And where is your growth when it comes to going back to school? Also, in anything that you do, in anything, what is your fear, what is your learning, and what is your growth? And on the left-hand side over here, if you ever watch this again, and when it's available to you, you can press pause. This is my zone when it comes to COVID. I have a paralyzing fear of COVID that has caused me to have social anxiety, which is something weird because I love being with people. But I had to actually use my emotional intelligence skills in order for me to stop my intense and paralyzing fear of leaving the house. It can happen to anybody. And so I wanted to honor anybody who is going through some difficult times to know that this is a wonderful activity to help you of where is your fear, what is your learning, and what is your growth, and then do the junk drawer activity. So as we're talking about in the Transformative Emotional Intelligence, 4 major pillars. You can see them as 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm actually going to go to 4, 3, 2, and 1 because that is really where the growth begins. It starts with yourself. Intrapersonal is the internal conversations you have with yourself. That person, is that person your best friend? I have a person inside of my head that speaks to me, but he's not, or she, or it is not my best friend. If I do something like, for example, the fact that this is recorded and my intrapersonal conversation dialogue with myself is, come on, you should have known this. You should have drove down to Orlando earlier so that you could have had the bandwidth and interacted with these people live. What is wrong with you? You should know better. And they're yelling at me. Whereas I have to remember that this is my best friend and this is the mean friend. I have to make sure that this person loves me because it's me. I know that sounds strange, but that helps with self-esteem. We beat each other up so much, meaning not each other, meaning inside. So I really had to actually work on my intrapersonal relationship with that voice in my head that wants to put me down, so that it actually helps build up my self-esteem. And I would catch that voice doing that, and all of a sudden it would be, wait a second, it's okay. You have goats that are about to have babies. One just gave birth. You couldn't do things. Your bandwidth is bad. It's a pandemic. Give yourself some grace, Dorina. Relax, these mistakes happen. Be honest with yourself. Make sure that you're really calling yourself out for the truth. And then if it really is a legitimate thing, then okay. But if you're lying to yourself, I'm going to call you out, okay? This is the conversation that you're supposed to have. This builds self-esteem, and this alleviates an enormous amount of stress by helping you with stress management. It's very powerful. Then you go into self-management, which we talk about again in Believe Cafe on YouTube. And it really is how driven you are, your time management, how committed you are to the things that you do that inevitably give you the positive personal change in life. And then, of course, the leadership of who you are. How empathetic are you towards people? How good are you with decisions? Are you that wishy-washy person that's like, I don't know, maybe just a little bit, I don't know. Okay, that is not emotional intelligence. Indecisiveness is a lack of emotional intelligence, but it's still a process. You can get better. And you do that through assertion. And assertion is very, very, very difficult. And you could do this on Believe Cafe, but really understand that assertion is one of the largest parts of the interpersonal relationship and healthy relationships. That's your relationship with other people. It's very, very powerful to really know where you stand. And assertion, a lot of times with teachers, we're not. We don't state exactly how we feel, and we should. So this lesson that you can have on Believe Cafe is really there for you so that you could increase your assertion, decrease the lack of decision making. That builds your comfort and leadership. It helps you with your commitment ethic, and it alleviates your stress, causing better stress management, and that brings up self-esteem. And it helps because it alleviates anger management. As you can see, this whole thing is like this process. And it's really, really good to know what each and every pillar is, and then the 13 emotional skills that go with it. So this is a nice visual for you to see, understand each aspect of the emotional intelligence and TEI. The value of two minds, that's the balance that we talked about, which is powerful. Developing that emotionally healthy mind, the self-directed behavior with the analytical thought, the interpersonal relationships and the healthy relationships, which helps with your anxiety and anger management, as well as your ability to be an assertive person, the leadership skills, your empathy, your comfort, the self-management, how well your drive strength, commitment ethic, personal positive change, self-renewal is all of that. This takes a long time. It's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you get to self-actualization, self-renewal is very similar. When you have all of those things of the pillars and the 13 emotional intelligence skills and you feel good about it, the self-renewal is trying to tell you, oh, I am great. I feel good. I understand all of these emotional intelligence skills, and now I want to get myself to personal excellence. And I put this one last because I really want you to know you are loved and you should love yourself. It is such an important thing in that intrapersonal conversation with yourself. So what I'd love for you to do right now that you understand the 4 major pillars of emotional intelligence and the 13 emotional intelligence skills that go along underneath each pillar, I'd like you to take a look at how it impacts your virtual and crisis learning. Now that we're going back to the schools, whether it's brick and mortar or not, if you are virtual, it is no longer called crisis learning, it is learning, but it is virtually. Take a look at how it can help in 1 through 5, while I celebrate all of you with a glass of fresh squeezed Florida oranges. What a beverage. Let's take a look at another 5. Here is another 5 of what emotional intelligence can do and how it impacts learning, how it impacts teaching, how it impacts interacting virtually. As we go into our virtual learning or you're doing brick and mortar, it is important that we all are aware that we are experts in our content intellect as educators. But what we want to focus on is the emotional intellect, our emotional intelligence. It's great to be excellent in math, but our emotional intelligence, in order for us to actually deliver our content, is so important. Sure, it is social emotional learning embedded within mathematics and science and history and language acquisition, but the emotional aspect is also how you are handling your everyday and thinking constructively and behaving wisely. So why is this important? I'm going to show you. In 2017, the American Federation of Teachers did research on the amount of teachers that needed mental health help. In 2015, 34% of teachers felt that they needed mental health help. And then in 2017, it skyrocketed to 58%. Imagine what it is now in 2020 during a pandemic. As English learners, it is imperative that we understand that a lot of our emotions need to be in check because of who we teach. There's a higher percentage of compassion fatigue for English learners because we take the students that have gone through so much, and everything from food insecurity to their home life to coming in from natural disaster, political asylum, or war-torn countries. And the compassion that we have for them can burn us out. And if we do not have our emotions in check, it can burn us out and teacher attrition can occur. Moreover, it could lead to something called vicarious trauma. That is really dangerous, and it could lead to depressive disorders and anxiety disorders. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do want you to know that if you are in need of mental health help and you have been sad for more than 2 weeks, go talk to somebody. Don't be afraid. I have an anxiety disorder. You don't need to be afraid to talk about mental health. So everybody learns about emotional intelligence differently, and your pace is different, but the correlation between your own emotional intelligence and embedding social emotional learning can be perfectly described right here. In the dark gray, you can see that we have a biological predisposition or hardwire for those particular emotions: sadness, joy, disgust, anger, surprise, and fear. But what needs to be taught are the light gray on the opposite side: humility, forgiveness, empathy, optimism, compassion, sympathy, patience, shame, cooperation, and grace. Without your own EI, it's very difficult to embed SEL in your own virtual lessons. Having this graph to take a look at, but also having yourself in that interpersonal conversation to look at yourself and where you are on those hardwired emotions, that is important so that you will be able to teach the ones on the side. Please look at empatico.org if you would like to even get further about this information and have lessons, free lessons. Oh, it's a great thing. And casel.org is the place to go for social emotional learning. This is just a powerful graphic for you to take a look at how the emotionally intelligent teacher knows a lot. So feel free to look at this and perhaps maybe even screenshot it and take a look at it and see and remember, take a picture of it and remember the importance of what really an emotionally intelligent teacher knows in order to be successful in this new way of learning for right now and beyond. So now what I'd love for you to do, a warm down, tell us your emotion now. How are you feeling after you just learned about transformative emotional intelligence? Chat box, Twitter, however, text me, whatever you want me to. I want to see how your emotions are now. Same, different, go for it. So what's my word of choice? My favorite word in the English language: believe. Be the educators who lead to inspire and empower via empathy. Don't believe me? Just watch what transformative emotional intelligence can do for you. I hope you begin this journey of transformative emotional intelligence and you share this information and Believe Cafe with anybody that really wants to balance the cognitive and the emotional mind and think constructively and behave wisely. I am here for you, as you can see, with the content of anything and everything but the kitchen sink for you to see if you want it in your schools, your districts, your PLCs, your PLNs, your family, your friends, and your students. I am here for you. I also have a new website website out called DorinaSackman.com. And if you need me for anything, I am there as well. So may we toast to each other that we did 30 minutes of VirtuEL together and enjoy the rest of this incredible conference together. Woo!